Nerdy is defined as someone characterized by an obsessive interest in something. Xbox, Marvel, technology, D&D, Lord of the Rings, escape rooms, Pokemon, Funko Pop, Star Wars, PlayStation, comic books, Magic the Gathering, Nintendo, Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers. All of that is Tech D Rob, host of the Nerd News Podcast, your source for everything nerdy.
I realize you guys are all nerds.
And this is the Nerd News Podcast.
Welcome to the Nerd News Podcast. I am Tech D Rob. It is the first September edition of the Nerd News Podcast, and it feels like it's like right in the middle of September, so it's a little odd, but it is what it is. We had some vacation time, and then we had last week was Labor Day on Monday, so I didn't record a new episode that day for the following day. Just a lot of things going on, most of which was me playing Baldur's Gate 3, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that now. In this edition of the Nerd News Podcast, we'll get to that and some other stuff as well. But let's get started, as we usually do, with the quick hits. So on video game platforms today, the 12th, Eternites for current and next-gen PlayStation and PC. Nour, Play With Your Food on those same platforms and Mac. Super Bomberman R2 on pretty much everything except for Mac. Gunbrella on Switch and PC. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, let me try it again. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, The Hidden Treasure of Area Zero, The Teal Mask. It's a mouthful. Ad Infinitum on next-gen PlayStation and Xbox and PC. AK Zolotl? I don't know. On current next-gen PlayStation and Xbox along with Switch and PC. Deceit 2 is on PC. Dune Spice Wars is on PC. A lot of these are later on in the week, but we're on the 14th right now. Monster Hunter Now is on iOS and Android. Solar Ash is on current and next-gen Xbox. The Crew Motorfest on current and next-gen Xbox and PlayStation along with PC. Thunder Ray on all of those same platforms, but also Switch. And then Baten Kaitos 1 and 2 HD Remaster for the Switch on Friday. So nothing huge. I'd say maybe the Pokemon game expansion is the biggest thing, but just play Baldur's Gate 3 and Starfield. Those are the games to play right now. Air and Joyride are on DVD this week. Air's been on like Prime for a while now, so that's crazy that it's just now making it to DVD. Barbie and Talk to Me will be available digitally to be purchased. And in theaters this weekend is a movie I've never heard of called The Kill Room with a couple famous people in it. But A Haunting in Venice is also out. That is the sequel to Death on the Nile, which was the sequel to Murder on the Orient Express, all starring Kenneth Branagh as Hercule Poirot, I think is his name. Poirot, I know is for sure. So if you're into those kind of movies, that is out now. We're going to take a quick break on the Nerd News Podcast in a very, very abbreviated version of the Nerd News Podcast. Not a whole lot going on news-wise. Next week, we'll probably have some information about the new iPhone as that event is coming up soon. So we'll take a break and then we'll be right back.
At TechD_Rob on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch. More Nerd News Podcast next. Follow Tech D Rob on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at TechD_Rob. This is the Nerd News Podcast.
Welcome back to the Nerd News Podcast. Like I said right before the break, there's a new iPhone event coming up. It's called Wonderlust, is what the people at Apple are calling it. So that'll be the day this podcast release. It will be airing at 1 p.m. that day. It's 10 a.m. Pacific. They're expected to release iPhone 15 information, Apple Watch 9, Apple Watch Ultra 2 potentially, maybe some new headphones, who knows, a bevy of things is to be expected. Excuse me. So we'll know more about that. I can speak to that more next week on the Nerd News Podcast. There's a new Nintendo controller patent, and a lot of people are thinking it's for Switch 2, which there's rumors that some developers were shown the Switch 2 at a recent convention, so who knows if that's true, and who even knows if Switch 2 will be like a next-gen video update, like it'll finally be in 1080p, maybe 4K, or who knows, it could just be totally out of left field, I mean, like Nintendo tends to do. They're very, what's the inventive in their designs. I need them to be more innovative in their designs. That's what I want. So we'll see what's going on with that. There's a new there's a new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Highly recommend you see it, Mutant Mayhem. But the sequel to the movie is not going to be a sequel. It will be a video game. I assume there will be an actual movie sequel as well, but the sequel to this will be a video game. No details yet, but it seems to take place directly where the movie leaves off. So, interested to see that. One Piece is now on Netflix. It's been out for a little while, but I've watched the first 2 episodes. It's a lot of fun. And if you're daunted by thousands of episodes of the One Piece anime, this might be where you can pick up and not be 1,000 episodes behind. There's only 10 in this season. Oh God! This is what happens when I stay after, because I have a doctor's appointment at 3 and I'm here at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm gonna be tired. It happens. So again, this is a very short edition of the Nerd News Podcast, so we'll soldier through. So One Piece is now on Netflix. I've watched 2 episodes. Plan to watch the rest once I can put down Baldur's Gate. And I'll get to that in a minute. No Tears of the Kingdom DLC is on the way. No TOTK. If you remember, that was the big thing in May. Huge game for the Nintendo Switch. And a front runner for Video Game of the Year, at least at the time. It appears that Baldur's Gate has taken a considerable lead on that. A lot of people are saying Starfield also should be in the conversation. Not so many people saying that the Harry Potter game should be in consideration anymore, but it was a fun game at the time in March when I played it. But at this, people on Switch still don't have it, I don't think. So it kind of missed the boat, I think. But also, Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be hard to topple for Game of the Year for a lot of folks, especially that's Game of the Year for me, Game of the decade for me, potentially. Maybe the game that it may be my favorite game of all time. Quite possibly. I'm very much into D&D, and it's a way to play D&D when you can't get everyone together for D&D, which is, it's cool. Let's see, what else do I have to talk about? Let's just get into Baldur's Gate. The only other thing I was going to say was Starfield. I haven't played it yet. I've been playing Baldur's Gate. Huge numbers. The most concurrent, maybe not even concurrent, but most users on a Bethesda game ever, they say. I would have to assume it's concurrent because Skyrim's been on so many different platforms. There's no way that it's not topped that chart of just players playing the game. But Starfield doing very well. And again, they won't give you numbers on how many of those people bought the game versus how many people are playing on Xbox Game Pass or PC Game Pass or any of those things. So no way to know if it's just because of accessibility because of Game Pass, or if people were really just excited about this game. Starfield looks like it's doing well, and I will play it, but it'll be a while. Mostly because I'm really into Baldur's Gate. I've beaten it one time. I don't know exactly how many hours I have. Well, actually, I think I can see. Let me open Steam on my Mac here, and I can see the hours I've put into Baldur's Gate. But it's a game that I've beaten one time. I'm playing through again. I'm on Act 2 now, over the halfway mark of the second run of the campaign, and it feels like a completely different game. It's crazy that it's so varied. Oh, okay. Thank you, Steam. I didn't need a noise. Let's see. I'm going to go to okay. I've played, it says I've only played 81 hours. That seems way off, but I don't know. Maybe that's true. I'm not sure. It seems significantly low because in the game on my other one, on my first run, it said 100 hours. So I don't know which one is or how it calculates this time, but it says I only have 81 hours and only 15 hours in the past 2 weeks, which is also, there's no way I put way more than 15 hours in the past 2 weeks. One of those weeks, let's see, if 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I was still on vacation. There's no way that number's way off. So in either way, Baldur's Gate, The story definitely takes a tail off in Act 3. Act 1 and 2, far superior as far as story development. And then Act 3, they kind of have to wrap things up there. So it's not that. I know they did cut a lot of information and a lot of stories because of just for pure lack of time to develop it in programming of the game. But there's a lot of things that feel unfinished at the end of the game. But despite all that, and my willingness to give them money for a DLC if they will do it, I don't even have to know what it's about. They say DLC's coming, pre-ordered immediately. Immediately, not even close. I will pre-order that without hesitation. Even if it was just another $60 game, they're like, look, it's on the way. Go ahead and pre-order now. Done. Pre-ordered immediately. I would have paid more than $60 for this game. A lot of next gen games are becoming $70 on consoles. I would have paid $70. I'd have paid $80. I mean, there would have had to been a good reason, like if there was some DLC with it or something. But I would have done it. This game was incredible. If you are any bit interested in Dungeons and Dragons, if you're not sure it's something that's for you, this is a good primer to understand how Dungeons and Dragons works. Obviously, the role-playing game version of it, the TTRPG version of it, is going to be significantly different because there's going to be a lot more role-playing decisions to be made. A lot of spells will obviously work a little differently when there's not like an AI for your opponent. And it's going to be considerably different. But it is still a good primer for the game of Dungeons and Dragons. And I highly recommend you check it out. I don't know that it'll be on sale anytime soon, but if it ever is and you're interested, pick it up. It's honestly so refreshing. A game that has this much free will. Like you can do things however you want to, and you might not end up with the result that you want, but you can still do what you want to do, and the game will not necessarily reward you, but the game will continue your story based on your decisions made. I can't emphasize this enough. Try Baldur's Gate 3. If you have Steam and you try it and you don't like it, or you try it and your system does not work for it, happens all the time, Steam will give you a refund. Now, there's a time constraint on that and a time in-game constraint. So make sure you check the refund policy before you purchase and know what you have to do to decide that situation. All right, that's the Nerd News Podcast for Tuesday, September 12th, 2023. Gosh, there had to have been a better place to look for it, but September 12th. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next week.
That's it for this week's Nerd News Podcast. Follow TechDRob on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at TechD_Rob. Subscribe now. More nerd news next week.